Welcome, everybody, to episode 20 of the Art of Marketing podcast webinar series with your friends at Applied Art. Today, we are talking about marketing in the manufacturing industry, and we're joined with our regulars, Mark and George, our partners, Shannon Quinn, our business development manager, and me, I'm Ryan, and I'm in marketing. And our guest today is Jack Hasken. He's the president and CEO of Jackson Manufacturing. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Could you give the folks that are just tuning in here kind of a synopsis, a little bit about who you are and what you do and kind of what Jackson Manufacturing does?
You bet. So, Ryan, as Ryan mentioned, Jackson Manufacturing, I'm the owner and CEO, and we are a custom plastic injection molder. We do contract assembly, and then we also have our own set of control and adjustment knobs. And this facility has been producing plastic components since 1986. It was originally an Illinois Toolworks facility. It was sold in 96 to another company here in Maquoketa, and then I purchased it in 2012 to continue on the business. Truth be known, they were going to shutter the business, sell everything, and I decided in my mid 50s, it's time to become a president and run and keep a company alive, and my job. And I did that. So with a good bank, a good lawyer, a good wife to help me. We're going to finish year 8, and we're a smaller company, about 15 employees. I employ mostly women. I also contract out some assembly jobs to a company called Imagine the Possibilities that they do some sub-assembly for a lower roller assembly, which, by the way, my customer knows that, and it's kind of the glue of our relationship. It's a feel-good human story to be able to have a job shop for people with these disabilities. And they come in with their lunch buckets, they say hi to me, they sit down and they do their work. They don't mind the repetition, they don't mind the detail, and they come in and do a good day's work for me. Right now, we used to have 8 people along that wheel, but with COVID, we had to apply the 6-foot rule, so now there's only 4 of them. But what's interesting, with 8, they used to do 6,000 assemblies in a shift, and now with 4, they're up to about 4,200. So they're actually working harder, and it's all good. So I mold components for a lot of different industries. I do a lot in the fenestration business, which I'll explain that. That's the window and door business, and so we make a lot of roller assemblies, both for the bottom roller on screens and the top, along with the handle sets. That's our bread and butter. And we've had a very long relationship with this customer, and it's a very good relationship. I just had dinner with my procurement VP the other night. We had a great dinner, and unbelievably, COVID has made the home improvement sector very busy, which is really interesting. And a lot of our parts end up being sold through the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the big boxes. And I would tell you, I didn't see that coming this year, but I'm happy. We are kind of bursting at the seams, getting product out the door. We are a true tier 2 supplier. So we buy the resin. The resin would be considered the tier 3. We're the tier 2. We mold the parts. We send them to another supplier who's a tier 1 that sends them to the OEM. So that's where we are in the food chain. We work with thermoplastic resin only. There's another resin called thermoset. A thermoplastic means that resin can be melted multiple times. A thermoset, just as the term sounds, one time. It's set and it's it. So we actually, it looks like we are actually recycling plastic, because if a part is bad or the runner, the screw in the runner, we take that's plastic, we run through a grinder, and then we put it back in with virgin. And so that's the process of injection molding. Injection molding is doing nothing more than taking a dry resin or a cake mix, running it through a screw and barrel, melting it, shooting it into a tool, into a liquid that solidifies, cools, and out comes the part. You've all been around plastic parts. It's actually quite fun to see it happening. I just purchased a 200-ton Millicron press this July, and the efficiencies and the production I'm just thrilled with it. I wish I'd have done it years ago. A lot of my machinery was quite old and not really cared for very well when I bought the business. But one thing that makes me happy in my business is when I can buy something. I like buying stuff. So I really had fun buying this 200-ton press. Our system is we are a build-to-order manufacturer with a combination of just-in-time. So basically, we don't just make parts and hope to sell them. We wait for the order. But then on the other hand, I want to get the material in just in time to hit that order, and I want to do the labor, and I want to do all my efforts just in time. So if you look at that, I think a lot of manufacturers run this way now. There's all kinds of philosophies, Kanban and lean and all that. We're not that sophisticated. Build to order with JIT. This is the only plant in Maquoketa, Iowa. We're the county seat, so we have 6,000 people in Maquoketa. And I would tell you the rural employees are excellent. It's that old Iowa farmer work ethic. I get that every day with my employees, and I like that. I have Dubuque to the north at 31 miles and Quad Cities to the south at 33 miles. So we're pinched right between. And I don't really have the labor issues right now. It's hard to find good people, but you just have to be patient. Let's see. Our culture here is very good. I like to treat my employees almost like my kids, maybe even better sometimes. But we do safety lunches every month. I'm a big safety advocate. I don't want anybody getting hurt here. I don't want to have anybody losing their livelihood to an injury. And so I'm very, very, very focused on that. As far as marketing, I'm an old school guy. Everybody remembers the 4 Ps, the product, promotion, place, and price. And as a CEO, I see that as a very critical part of everyday business. And, it's interesting. The place is kind of more for retail, remember, or real estate. It's all about the location. We're on a very nice location here. I sit on 10 acres. My building sits on about 4, so I can actually expand, and I would like to do that someday. But as far as promotion, when I bought the business, first of all, it was called ADAC Plastics, and it was a very, very clumsy old website, and I spent the time and effort to update my website. I hired a firm to do that out of Dubuque. And then I even, back in about 15 or 16, I hired a firm from Des Moines to help me with my content. I wanted my story to be told. And George, you mentioned that stories are fun. We have a good story with our company history, but my website is not really going to generate me a lot of revenue, even though I think it's a pretty good website. I really like my website. But I think I told Shannon yesterday, if I had to live off the sales of my website, I'd be very skinny. And I like my website to tell my story, but the way I sell and the way I manufacture, except for my knobs are an area that I would really love to see a rep or a distributor say, I want to take on your line. Now that hasn't happened to date, but one of the things, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this conversation with you all today is I like marketing. I think I like the philosophy of it. I like the focus on it, but I also want to know what's really working. I think videos are very powerful. I see a lot of websites where they just start talking about this is us and this is our story. And we had a video, and I forgot to mention this yesterday to Shannon, but we had KCRG come up here in 2017, and they were doing a little skit called Made in Eastern Iowa. So they came in with their film crew, and Mary Rupp is my operations manager. I called her AKA, Vanna, and I'm Pat, Sajak. So we came in, they had the crew, we talked about how we showed them how knobs were made. We showed them the type of knobs we make. And Chris Earl, I think that's his name, with KCRG, he's a real character. It was a no cost to me, and it was really good exposure. And I received so many compliments about that. So that's when the video thing is like, this is really good. And so I really enjoyed promoting that. Now, did I have a distributor rep call me up? No, that would have been the icing on the cake if that had happened. But and nobody's doing trade shows anymore, by the way. So that is tough because it's hard to market your wares, so to speak, when nobody's going to these shows. And so I'm really, as far as my efforts, I have a lot of customers, believe it or not, that find me versus me finding them. I'm the only salesman for the company, but we are so specialized. I can't mold everything for everybody. I run smaller parts as a whole, and we do assembly. And be quite honest with you, I would love to double our business, but it's easier said than done because you have to have the equipment, and the people, and everything else to support the sales. I would tell you we are optimized right now with our 15 employees, and but I do want to grow the company. We have experienced very good growth with new opportunities, new molding projects. We had a gentleman that basically had a long relationship with getting his parts molded. I'll just say it was over by the Fort Dodge area. And then now they've decided that they won't do that for him anymore. So he kind of came to me hat in hand and said, I need help. Would you mold my parts? And I said, well, let me look at everything you're doing. And we sat down, and we're going to start getting his parts and tools next week. He's happy. I'm happy because I'm a businessman. It's all about taking care of somebody's needs, and we're going to make a little money.
There we go. Hey,
That's
Jack,
the goal.
I have a question. You
Yes.
said that you have people coming to you. How are they finding you?
How are they finding you?
That's a good question, George. Mark, it's our network of the majority, and without giving you names, our network of who we mold for, and our quality and our reputation, that's how they find us. So it's kind of, the word of mouth, but it's through, another example is a company over in Des Moines that needed a backup molder. And they said, you mold right now for, the customer. And I said, yes. Well, we have this project. We'd like you to be the backup molder. And I said, well, that's fine. And what are we talking about? He says, well, why not? Right now we have a tool that makes 10 million parts. We want you to make 8, and the other molder makes, you make 2 and the other molder makes 8. I said, I can live with that. And we've been doing that, but now it's interesting. The volumes have been getting larger, and I'm happy about that. We've held our price. Our quality is very consistent. So that's how they find us. It's just through, and it's interesting, George and Mark, that in this day and age, how information travels so quickly, whether it's social media, texting, whatever. It doesn't take long. And God knows you can do about anything with Google. But it's really interesting how it happens. I also mentioned to Shannon, there's another way to try and go out and get new business, and it's called door knocking and cold calling. I'm 62. I used to do a lot of that in my 40s. It's a tough way to make a living. Nowadays, you got to have an appointment. First of all, I'm a CEO now. I'm not going to guy comes knocking at my door. I'm not going to talk to him because he wasn't smart enough to get an appointment. And I'm professional. I'm a salesman at heart. Be courteous. Try and get in, and there's opportunities, but there's a smarter way to get new business. And I like to think of there's farming, get more from what you got, and there's hunting, going to find new customers. And I try and keep a nice combination of that. I'm on a sales call Monday. I'm going down to Southern Iowa, a couple prospects I'll talk to, but I have to make sure they're a good fit for what we do.
Were these prospects from referrals?
They were from referrals. Yes. I love referrals, George. It's a great way to do it.
That's the best way, isn't it?
It's the best way.
Well, it sounds like things are going great for you, with the home improvement. Let's assume when the COVID dies down a little bit and
Yeah.
that spike is over, what
Yeah.
do you see the challenges in your industry
Okay.
in the next few years? And is foreign competition a factor in any of that?
Yeah. Um, I would tell you the next year or two, you know, I am very heavy into the window and door business. And after that, George, I'm so diversified, it's not even funny. There's nobody that has more than 1% of my business after one
Mm-hmm.
large customer.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common in our business to have, you know, the old 80-20 rule. I'm pretty much a textbook on that. And it does keep me up at night. But the other thing I really like is after that, I'm very, very diversified. Even in this COVID, I've been asked by, I would say my second, by the way, we sell to ITW. We sell to another molder. We mold for another molder. It's interesting. We mold their tools, their parts. We use their boxes. It looks like it come out of their location, but that's happening all over in the U.S. in manufacturing, you know. So I'm not giving out any trade secrets. It's just the way it is. But you know, the key there is you know, I foresee that the window and door business is strong. My other divisions and my other components I produce are growing. I have a couple of them that are starting to fall off. In our business, George, we have youth, adolescence, maturity, older age, death. It happens with every molding part we do. And I would tell you that majority of my business is right in that probably middle age area. Nothing lasts forever, especially in molding. So we're always looking for new opportunities. As far as foreign competition, not really a big deal. It's funny, there's a lot of reshoring of tools. The problem with everything in China is every boat from China is slow. You've heard the story of slow boat from China. They're all slow. It takes forever to get something from there. I don't do any business with any. I get solicited 4 or 5 times a day by Chinese tool makers, and it's interesting. They all take on these U.S. names, and it's like, okay, I know that's not your real name, but anyway, I don't do anything with China. I by the way, on my website and every business cards, American made, partners in plastics. So we are an extension of our manufacturer, of our supplier. We supply to of them, and that we never forget that. And that goes true to their specs of their parts. We have to meet or exceed their expectations, and we do. Price is a big deal.
Yeah.
We're very competitive. Our knobs, our adjustment knobs, I can sell those to anybody and everybody that I want to. Now, if I can get it a dealer or a rep, now I'm going to probably be talking about, I'm going to protect some states for them, right? Where I'm not going to let somebody else come in and do it. It's a good problem to have, but you know, that's one of the things, and I don't think I mentioned this, Shannon, yesterday, but that's one of the things I've always wanted to do is create my own product and distribute it through a distributor or a rep agency. And I've got a couple ideas, but it all takes tooling, you know, because you got to remember the tool is going to produce the parts, whether it's 2 parts a cycle, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So it's all it's all part of the process. So George, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, actually, and that made me think of a couple other questions. One comment is, you know, when you have a slow boat from China, it's hard to do just-in-time manufacturing, isn't it?
Right.
The other thing is, I was thinking about the referrals. You know, one of the problems with referrals, you can't target who those people are. You know, if there was a particular class of customer, you know, let's say you looked at your most profitable customers, you wanted more of those.
Yeah.
That's hard to with referrals because you really don't have any control over that. What are your thoughts about how you might target your more ideal customers?
Yeah, you know, you're right about the referrals, 100%, because they can come to you, but if their tools aren't in good shape or their product has got some nasty material, pretty soon it's like, yeah, this may not work. And as far as how we can target, I would tell you, always do what you're good at. Okay. And we're good at molding and downstream assembly. Okay. And I could, personally, I could start going to target another window and door manufacturer. Well, we got a big one over in the middle of Iowa called Pella. We got one over in West Des Moines called Windsor. I know both companies very well. It's interesting, George, that molders and customers tend to have really tight relationships. If you're breaking into another customer, they're either getting beat up on quality or price or just dropping the ball. And those kind of referrals are really interesting because it's not rocket science what we do. It's consistent quality, price, delivery, and is a company good to work with. So I'm actually for 2021, I'm going to be doing this probably for, if you ask my wife, for another 10 or 15 years. But I'll probably do this for another 7 or 8 years. I will guarantee you right now, I will be most likely making a product of Jackson, more maybe an expansion of my knob area, adjustment knobs and control knobs. By the way, you see adjustment and control knobs on everything from snow blowers, lawn mowers, quilt stands, bikes. We have a company out west in Oregon that makes these bikes, whether they're 2, 3, 4. It's interesting to see some of these. Well, they all have knobs on them for adjustment of seats and stuff. And it's interesting. We've been doing knobs for them for probably 20 years. And it ebbs and flows. It's consistent business. I love repeat business. It's the sauce of any good business. Keep them coming back and make them happy. So that's about all I could say on that one right now.
I was just see there was a comment. I won't mention who, just because. But he says, not all boats from China are slow. Mine was 10 days, Shanghai to Long Beach with weekly service. So,
Okay.
I think one of the things is maybe they're getting faster,
Yeah. Well, the big thing is that with the trade war, we'll call it the trade war, and where that's going to end up after the COVID thing. And you read the papers. Governor Branstad is no longer the ambassador to China. Okay, there goes that relationship. Got a little stressed there, I would think, with the president of China. But I would tell you that as a manufacturer, we need to be mostly independent of China. And yes, there's China knobs out there, George, Mark, that are down and dirty, cheap. The problem is the longevity of that knob will not last. Those knobs are most likely they're pressed in. We insert mold the studs or the inserts right into the tool, and the plastic flows around them. I would challenge any muscle man to try and torque that out with his hand. It isn't going to happen. You could do that with a China knob though. And so, their perception of quality and our perception of quality are on both different ends of the spectrum. And I've heard that from many molders that have tried to get tools from them. Their interpretation of the spec and yours it turns into almost a complete mess. And I would never say never, but I would never a tool from China ever, or material. I buy all my materials American. Produced here, and we use acetals and nylons, ABS, PVC, all kinds of good stuff. Different price ranges. So
that's a good point. You can produce a wide range of quality parts.
Yes. Yeah,
So
and there's certain things that can happen to that quality. Believe it or not, if a lot of resins need to be dried, and if there's moisture in that resin, it'll make a splash mark on the part. It'll look like it's wet, and that's called splay. And that's one of the nasty things about plastic is getting moisture And that's another thing that has to happen before that resin gets pulled into the machine. It's got to go in there dry. So.
Do you have a question, Mark?
Well, I was just gonna say you had mentioned about trade shows not happening.
Yeah.
Were you an exhibitor or were you an attendee?
Both. I've done both, Mark. And I used to do, when I did sell for another molder years ago, they were still kind of popular. And by the way, I covered the Mississippi West. So I covered a lot of area to Denver. And, but the trade shows, the problem, Mark, is they're just not getting the attendees. People, I don't know what happened other than the time and the cost. But if you're an exhibitor, the cost can be high. But, all you need is a couple new customers to justify the cost of joining the show. I know there's always a big one up in Minneapolis every fall. And that was one I always enjoyed going to. But I haven't been to a trade show in 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's from a marketing standpoint. I get Plastic News. I get all these different publications, and it used to be every other page was a show. Nobody's going, and it's somewhat disturbing, but you got to go with the times. And if nobody's going, why would you go? To see other vendors? You don't need to do that. They're not buying.
They're doing it virtually now, Jack.
Yeah.
They're still happening because we're doing them.
Okay.
For companies. They're still happening. They're just going virtual. The cost savings alone, the travel, the food, the expense. But doing it virtually, we've heard, whether it's an annual meeting, a convention, or a trade show, that folks, because of all the cost efficiencies, they're actually getting more attendees to participate. Nobody's having to stand at a table and have those conversations, and they're still willing to get those things.
Well, that's interesting, Shannon. I understand the cost part of it. It's funny, I'm old school. The social part of it isn't the same, but you're still able to see the people, and hard to say. Look at this. Look at the quality of this adjustment knob. That's really, see how nice that is? Yeah. So, that's just the long and short of it. And so, again, old school, but it is about, I know Ryan's a millennial young guy, and they adapt to what's in front of them. The technology it's what they're all about. Mm-hmm. And you have to know that who's your audience, like you mentioned, and who's your potential. My potential biggest audience is that OEM that needs quality components at a good price, on time, every time. And
how are you going about reaching them now?
Right now, I would tell you, I hand select who I go after. I use a manufacturing directory, actually, and I will look at what do they make, what do they do. And it's interesting. You could be calling on a company that makes brass components. Well, they're not going to use any plastic. Yeah, they are. You got to dive in. The trickiest part is getting a hold of the procurement person to call you back, or to get, unfortunately, I would tell you this: the prospecting by email is a tough way to go. I get solicited. If they do a good job of representing their company and are professional about trying to get my time, I'll give them an appointment. I expect that from people I contact, but I got a little bit of an advantage because I'm not just a sales guy, I'm the owner too. So I got a little bit of skin in the game, and that helps. But that's how I do it.
Jack, I have a question. We talk about this a lot. As far as like emails and things that you get, or people kind of cold reaching out to you.
Right.
What works?
And what catches your eye?
Yeah, that's really good. I would tell you, I just got one this morning, and gentleman out of Dubuque, and he's representing an equipment company, and I buy all the equipment stuff, all the auxiliary equipment. And he was funny because he said, I came to your business. We got a sign on the front door. Because of COVID, you got to call we'll meet you at the door, and then we can decide if we're going to talk to you. Well, he must have come about lunchtime, which is a number one. You don't want to do that because you're probably not going to get the guy or gal that you want to talk to. But anyway, he did. He said, I was at your door, and I'd really like to talk to you. And I thought to myself, yeah, I've been there. Okay. So, but he was very short and precise. It wasn't a bunch of detail about his company. And it works in sales, soft approach. I said, okay, I'll meet with him. We're meeting next Thursday, 10:30. So it's the professionalism to the point that works for getting good appointments.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have mentioned that because now you have a bunch of people showing up at lunchtime.
Yeah. Well, if nothing else, I'll critique them, and I'll say, well, you didn't work on the rapport at first. That's an important part of sales, right? You got to get that rapport before you start asking for a sale or their needs. So
there you go.
Jack, one of the things we talked about was you got some help when you redid your website a few years ago with content. And we're a firm believer in content being king. And it really doesn't matter in what format it comes, whether it's emails or videos. What do you think your potential targets, how would they respond to, or how have they responded to whatever content you've used? Have you done anything? Have you put video on your website? Have you done any kind of email campaigns?
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever done anything along those lines?
Besides work? Okay.
What do you do besides?
Yeah, what do you do?
From a marketing perspective, has there been anything that you've tried and then just said, eh?
Yeah, I would tell you, Shannon, email campaigns, we get too many of them. It's like shooting in the dark. You don't know if you're going to hit anything. Now, emails are great after you make contact. Excellent after contact, not for initial contact. Don't use that. I would tell you the videos. I've been approached by other companies. I'm an ABI member, by the way. I'm vice chair. I need to throw that plug in. Next year, I'm going to be chair. We're going to have our conference in this coming year. It's going to be in Iowa, in Coralville, but the following year it's going to be in Dubuque. That's where I live. But I've been approached by different companies, and the cost of a video can be just damn near alarming. I mean, now you can tell a wonderful story, and I'm just being honest from a business owner's perspective. That's advertising. That's very effective advertising, but can you do it in a economical way? That's the question. I have never done a video on our company. KCRG came in and did my knobs. That was fun. We had a ball. We also did a commercial for my bank that I was using up in Dubuque. I've since changed banks, but that was fun too. They had a makeup gal. We had a lot of fun. I said, easy on the makeup on me.
So it would surprise you to know that one of the emerging trends in 2020 when it comes to manufacturing marketing is the use of video.
Okay.
And the use of personalized emails. I mean, this one-on-one face-to-face stuff is really kind of fading quickly, particularly with COVID. You've got your sales process is bound to become more digital than ever before.
Sure.
So while you might be forced to have to embrace some of that, even though you're an old school guy, because some of these emerging technologies are going to be the way you're going to be able to grow your business.
Understand. I would agree with that, Shannon. And I've never been one not to change. I like to change. I like to use what works, but I would agree with you that go with, and that's why we are talking, because I went back and finished my degree. You don't know this about me, but I went back and finished my degree in 2009 and 10. My major was business administration and my minor was marketing. So I can kind of talk about marketing from a bachelor degree standpoint. So I got a business. It's called a business administration, a BBA, business and marketing degree. Sorry about the phone. I told you that might happen, and it is happening.
That's all right.
It's no problem. Somebody trying to reach you, not through email.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things he mentioned, Jack, earlier when we were talking is you just don't have the time.
Yeah.
You know, you've got you believe in marketing, you have it, but you don't have the time, right? You're busy
Yeah,
just
right.
running the company and dealing with sales.
Right. Well, and George, the interesting thing is some of my, I always keep track of my primary duties. Sales is one of them. Vendor relations, customer relations, and I'll put that in with the sales part of it. You know, this year has been very busy, very demanding. Back to our order yesterday, Shannon, that we had to put together 2,000 parts now. Drop everything, go. And but one of the things I've been told I'm good at time management, and I think you have to be at my level because it's too easy to get pulled into the minutia of the day to day, and I don't do that. Mary Rupp is my operations person. She's been here 24 years doing what she does, so does a phenomenal job. Does some of the HR things, which is always, I would tell anybody, the HR part of any business is the people part can be difficult. So when you got everybody pulling on the same rope at the same level, something happens and you got to get that figured out. So anyway, but the time part, but I sincerely do want to get more focused on the marketing of the business. I am very serious about, I'm not a patient man. Anybody that knows me knows that. I need to get my rep or my distributor set up quickly. We're finishing 2020. I think if you look back at 2020 on a business, I was very happy with my activity, the sales, everything, the equipment. It's been fun. I do spend a lot of time making sure everything on the equipment supplier is ticking. That's not Mary's job. That's my job. So I bought this press. I would tell you, George, it took 6 weeks of negotiation, coordination. You got to, getting a press here is the easy part. Getting it off the truck, the thing weighed 30,000 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
2 fork trucks, plumbing, electrical. You know, and it's funny. That's one of my strengths. Is I like to arrange, and so you know, it's funny as you mature in your work career, you tend to fill your day with what you're good at. I think that's a smart thing to do, right? Do what you're good at.
That has been my mistake then. At least everyone's been telling me that.
Well, you know, and it sounds so common sense, but it's funny. If I have to get into an area, okay, let's say I got an IT problem. I'm not good at that, but I got somebody that'll figure it out for me. So that, you know, I'm kind of like that switchboard operator. I gotta plug in the people that need to be plugged in, and I'm gonna plug out. I'm not doing that. So.
Yeah, you might have to explain switchboard
Switchboard
operators
to people.
for a millennial.
Brian, you know, that was back in the day.
I can Google it.
Oh, goodness.
Who was
On
the
that
gal on the
note-
switchboard? The one ringy dingy, Ruth Buzzy, or yeah, remember her?
Was it Ruth Buzzy? Yeah,
I thought
or
it
Lily
was.
Tomlin, maybe.
No, it was
Lily
Lily
Tomlin.
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 Thank you. You got it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Right. So
On that
coming
note, before we have to explain ourselves to everybody
Again.
again,
I was going to say,
let's,
Jack, we have the last question here we always ask everybody is for anybody that's watching this, that's wanting to expand some of their knowledge about, you know, marketing in the manufacturing industry, what would be probably your biggest tip to trying to get and maintain more business in terms of growing and kind of the outreach piece of it?
meet somebody like Shannon to help you.
Sure.
Right, for sure. Yeah. Was that directed at me, Ryan?
Yes. I was just asking. I know we'd mentioned a couple different ways you're doing with referral business and stuff like that, but what do you think would be your biggest tip for other manufacturers that are trying to continue to reach out to more people and grow and those types of things?
Use the professionals, the tools that they have. You know, I would tell you, you're not the smartest person in the room. There's people that can help you grow your business as long as you listen to them and use their tools. And marketing, you know, back in the day, I mean, any good successful business has always had a good marketing department campaign. They made sure that product was out there. Okay. And in today's social media, and I told Jan, I'm not a big social media person. I like LinkedIn. I think that's a professional network, of a good way to, and it's interesting, by the way, George and Mark, I get solicited for jobs, people looking for jobs through LinkedIn. Hi, Mr. Hasken. So you run your, you know, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to try and get a job through LinkedIn. I do get a few requests for product quotes from LinkedIn, but not many. But anyway, back to that, Ryan. I mean, I would tell you that's the key, especially for small companies. The smaller the company, the bigger you really have to look at expanding your marketing department. And I would tell you, because of how I sell and how I used to sell, you know, I am all ears for what works in marketing, the best way to achieve getting our services and our capabilities out to get new customers, because it's all about new customers.
I think the best thing to, oh, go ahead, George.
I was going to think the thing that we'd recommend, you know, to people in your situation is taking kind of a lean approach. You know, start small, and measure it. Watch those metrics, and see what works. And if it doesn't work, stop it.
It's a good idea, George. I like that idea.
Nothing happens overnight. And I think the key, because we've heard this story many, many times, people reach a marketing agency. They think they found a partner that really understands the business. You've really got to manage expectations and not do anything that doesn't make sense. Sure. And that's not just throw a video on your website. If you want to tell the story, if you've got a unique process and people are going to be entertained by that, and you're going to get more attention and you're going to get talked about, that's one thing. But oftentimes it's a deeper conversation. It's not just, I need a new website. No, what's the bigger issue? What's not happening? Who's not, who are you not being referred to because they don't have a clear understanding of what it is that you do? Those are the things you have to address. So.
That's really good. And, you know, I remember when websites came out, Shannon, how important it was to have a really good website. And then you get on somebody's site and you go, I really like your product, but you have a horrible website. Mm-hmm. I mean, was this a second website made? Because this is rough. And I don't think I have that. If I do, I'm going to go back to my company up in Butte and say, what are we doing here? But, well,
your website needs to be more than an online brochure. People need to feel something. There needs to be some kind of an emotion, and that usually comes from the power of storytelling, effective storytelling.
Do you help with websites? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to.
Yes.
We do. We have a web team.
Well, that's good.
Well, yeah, see, that's what I said. The answer to Ryan's question is you find someone like Shannon who helps me think outside the box and gets you connected.
Okay, so we should look and talk and because it's been a few years since I've done mine, and we're you know, I guess knowing my target audience, Shannon, so it's not like I'm selling widgets via internet. I got a gentleman in town here that sells dog training platforms. I'll throw it out there, Blue 9. He sells mostly through the internet. Mm-hmm. Okay, been hugely successful, hugely. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, I got a referral for you too.
Oh, there we go.
I do.
Then we've had a successful webinar, so let's wrap it up.
Yes.
Sure.
And I don't know all his, but he is a very smart gentleman, and we can talk later about that.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you, Jack, for answering that last question there. I know we had a couple of questions we were answering live in the chat while that was going on, so we answered everybody's questions.
Okay. Well, great. I really enjoyed this today, group.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir.
Too, Jack.
You bet.
Hey,
I'll be sure, Jack, to call and make an appointment.
You better.
You know, Shannon, just show up for lunch.
Yeah, I think I probably could get away with that, I'm guessing.
I bet she could too. Let her in the door.
All right.
Okay,
All right.
thanks again.
Jack.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Jack. You have a lovely weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.